How's it going, everybody? Shout out all my Mets fans, whoever you're a fan of, first chiming in live on replay. It's your boy Wardy, and we're back at it with our latest post game here for spring training as the New York Metropolitans take Game 4 this spring, this time by a final score of 7-1 as they went fishing against those Miami Marlins. In today's show, we'll get into everything that transpired. What were the biggest takeaways in today's matchup? Headlined by Adrian Houser making his Mets spring debut. Drew Gilbert showing exactly why he is a Mets top prospect as he records his first hit. Chi-Man Choi showcasing that power, which is why he's one of the hardest hitters in Major League Baseball throughout his career, along with so many other things to get down, both good, maybe a little bit bad, and indifferent, is what we'll be breaking down from this spring game. So to everyone first chiming in, thank you guys all so much for being in here. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button, as it is the easiest and best way to support the channel. Greatly appreciate it. I see a lot of familiar faces in here first chiming in. Jason, PB, great member. Yoshima, great member. Mayor, CP, how you doing? Michael, Guardian of Chaos. John, my man Anthony at Subway to Shade, D-Ron, Daniel, David, appreciate everyone first chiming in. Again, happy to have you guys here because this was another nice Mets game for our Amazons here this spring. And don't get me wrong, we shouldn't put too much stock whatsoever into spring training production, but when it comes to both position battles and top prospects are expected to hit the bigs as soon as the season, that is what a lot of fans, including myself, have ourselves locked in on right now. And today, there are plenty of positive takeaways from today's outing, which again was kicked off with Adrian Houser on the bump for the Amazons. So we're going to get into that. You guys see some highlights too. We'll get into the numbers on the pitching and really what are the biggest takeaways, because this is not the same as what post games will be heading into the regular season, where we will be doing more of a thorough breakdown inning by inning. For spring training, however, even though I have all my notes right here, and it's important that we go over the things that are noted that we should be going over, right? And something that stuck out to me with Adrian Houser making his Mets debut today on the bump, he looked solid overall. Again, gave the Mets 2 scoreless innings, including 1 hit allowed, and had 1 strikeout. Not known for overwhelming life with his fastball or anything like that, Adrian Houser. Again, a guy that today sat 92 on the sinker, sat 82 on the slider, 93 on the four-seam fastball, 84 on the changeup, and around 80 on the curveball, all down by at least a mile or two on his pitches, but this is the beginning of spring training. Guys are just starting to get ramped up. Jorge Lopez, for example, gave up a bomb in the first pitch that he threw today that he settled in for the most part, and was another guy that had his overall numbers down on his velo and his break a little bit. So it'll be something that we monitor throughout spring, but nothing that I'm overly concerned about at this point in time, as again, guys are just starting to get ramped up. Some are already in mid-season form, like we saw with Yuri Perez for the same Marlins yesterday, who was freaking throwing 98-99 consistently on the bump to kick off Miami Marlins game yesterday. Today, though, we see the Mets might not necessarily have guys who are in midseason form just yet, but they did look overall productive for the Mets today. And Houser, with his arsenal, I love the uniqueness that he has a 5-6 pitch mix. That's important. I would like to see a little bit more variation in some of his pitches as well, because again, he's not known for overwhelming life on the heater, so he's more known for those off-speed breaking pitches and ultimately having that late life with sink, which again, at times can certainly be good for a lefty hitter. But something Houser adjusted on today that he spoke mid-game on after he pitched was that after he realized how lefty batters were viewing him, he then mixed things up a little bit and went more backdoor in his sliders and front hip with his sinkers to lefty, and that's where he was able to have more success. Adrian Houser, who's notorious as a ground ball pitcher, induced plenty of ground balls today, and both Mark Vientos and Jose Iglesias did a fantastic job in the Mets infield for the most part today. Iglesias was all over the place, making some really nice turns, had one throw that was off the money for G-Man Choi on first, but they were still able to get the tag on the runner going down the first baseline. Mark Vientos actually impressed me today a little bit, just in his aggressiveness with his third base ability. He was not hesitant. He drove into the ball on the defensive end. He went right in, picked that bad boy up, and tossed the first with ease on multiple occasions today. I like the aggressiveness we saw with Vientos' defense. And again, for a guy that's trying to showcase more than just power at the DH position, let's see if Marky V can actually potentially become anything that the Mets could use defensively heading into the 2024 season. That would certainly be a plus if that does in fact come to fruition. But overall, Adrian Houser, as I mentioned, had himself a solid outing today for the Amazons. Jorge Lopez, again, did give up that lone run for the Mets, and you look at his pitch mix today, sinker sat right around 96 miles per hour, Four-seam fastball around 95.5, slider around 86, and the knuckle curve around 82. We're looking at 1 to 2 or even 3 miles per hour off, especially the slider. He usually averages almost 89 miles per hour on the slider, so that was down a little bit today. Four-seam fastball usually averages 97, and I can't reiterate this enough, not overly concerned whatsoever when you look at it's the beginning of spring training. We're not even in March yet. It was Lopez's first debut today. I'm anything but bothered by his outing for the most part. And to really round out things, because I want to emphasize pitching a bit before we get on to the hitting, when it comes to guys like Drew Gilbert, of course. As I now pan into the pitching slide here, as you guys will see, we have Adrian Hauser again with a nice scoreless outing today. Jorge Lopez gave up the lone run. Michael Tonkin came in today and looked very sharp. I really liked the late movement that he had on his pitch, too. Again, a sinker slider guy, the 1-2 punch. The slider sat 94, the sinker sat right around 93, 94 today. And the slider sat 93. Again, was looking sharp for the most part that we saw there with Tonkin. And then we have Yaxel Rios, who is making his second outing for the Mets this spring. Another swirless one. You love to see that. But the man of the hour, the big name, not named Adrian Hauser and Jorge Lopez, that fans were intrigued to see today, Nate Lavender, after striking out everyone that he faced first time around in his first spring outing, comes out today with another masterful 1-2-3 inning on just 9 pitches, including 1 strikeout. Nate Lavender is looking brilliant, and really you have to give a lot of credit not only to his usage, where yes, he doesn't have overwhelming life with his four-seam fastball and his sinker, but if he throws it with authority, a little bit more oomph to it, he's getting nice bites, swing and misses. A lot of high whiff rates that we're seeing so far with Lavender, and that ability to manipulate hitters' timing with that front leg has been vital. Whether it's Nestor Cortez, whether it's Marcus Stroman, whether it's whatever example you want to make, starting pitchers or relievers, when they have success with these late delayed deliveries, I even think of 2 at times. Johnny Cueto would get very creative with how long he'd hold his leg up to before he released. There's so many examples of it, but we've seen it lead to plenty success at the major league level. And Nate Lavender, through his first 2 spring outings, don't get me wrong, a lot more to prove this spring. We all know that. So far, so good, as he looks like he's a potential real crafty option for the Mets in this bullpen. A third lefty option, along with Brooks Raley and Jake Diekman. Nate Lavender, that we spoke on plenty a couple days ago when he made his Mets spring debut, followed up the best way possible today, so we're all looking forward to seeing the next time he's on the bump there for the Amazons. Got to give major credit there to Nate Lavender with the way he's looked thus far, and again, you don't have to have the best stuff in the world, but you just got to be good at manipulating batters and really throwing them off and making it hard to see pitches. And Nate has truly done a fantastic job in that right so far this spring. Another guy that actually surprised me a little bit today, Nunez here, who's been in the Mets organization. We're going all the way back to 2017. However, Nunez today looked very sharp. Four-seam fastball, slider, curveball, sinker mix there. He was sitting 98, almost 99 on the gun with the year. Looked sharp. 1.2 innings, 2 hits allowed, 3 strikeouts for a guy who's not expected to impact the Mets bullpen this year from the jump at least, but had himself a nice outing in spring against these Miami Marlins. So that's all you really need to know on the pitching front today, guys. There was plenty good, very little bad, in my humble opinion, especially when you win by a final score of 7-1. Clearly, the pitchers were doing something right. Also, fair warning, guys, I'm going to go back to my slide, but if you want to lower your volume for a second, I know my intro is going to run for like a hot 2 seconds. So just fair warning, apologies in advance, because I didn't hide it when I switched from one slide to the other. So here we go. We're going to do it again. And there it is. Thing that is my fault and no one else's. So before we get into the hitting, is I really want to emphasize what I saw from both G-Man Choi, Drew Gilbert today, Luis Angel Acuna, among others, and just their ability to get on base and be productive. Before I do that, though, I do, of course, have to let you guys all know about today's amazing video sponsor. What you see there on the graphic, our great friends at BetUS. For those that don't know, BetUS is America's #1 sportsbook, as they're both safe, secure, and reliable. And guys, we all know the drill by now. They've got you covered with all your sports betting needs. I've had a lot of you guys actually reach out to me recently on social media using BetUS, whether it's for NBA games, NHL games, or especially I know some of you guys are waiting to get in on MLB action along with me, where we're going to be doing some unique WardyNYM parlays and, picks, props of the day that we'll break down in our post-game shows throughout the regular season. A lot of you guys have been enjoying your time with BetUS so far, and I greatly appreciate that because it supports the channel a lot. So please continue to check them out for all your sports betting needs, as again, we're going to be doing some awesome, unique WardyNYM picks and parlays throughout the regular season. So do yourself yourself a favor. Again, if you guys not only are enjoyers of sports betting, but also know how to handle it, please know your limits too. Be smart, be responsible by clicking the link in the description. That way you too get 125% boost when not your first, your second, but your first 3 deposits. That means if you deposit $100, you automatically get $225 to work with. You can do that 3 times. It's that easy. It's easy money to work with, and there's so many awesome games out there, especially NBA action has been hectic, but it's been a lot of fun, especially if you were a Knicks fan like myself who knew we got bailed out. Finally, the Knicks finally got bailed out in a game, and if you're a Pistons fan watching this, I apologize. It has been an abysmal season for you guys, to say the least. But I digress. Let's talk about Mets offense now, because I want to start off with Choi. Now, when the Mets first signed Choi this offseason, it had mixed reviews, a mixed bag, of course, because you're getting a guy that, when you look at his peripherals, especially through Baseball Savant, very, very good hitter. You know, you're led to believe that, okay, Choi throughout his career is pretty much over league average hitter, and at his absolute best, again, can find himself in a very comfortable range where, you know, he's hitting for a solid clip, getting on base at a very solid clip, and does have the power, but he's dealt with some bad luck. You know, he hits hard. He's one of the harder hitters in all Major League Baseball today. And his first at-bat, he looked like he was out of it. He ended up working a walk, which was fantastic after being down in the count big time. And then his next at-bat drills a 107-mile-per-hour exit velo nuke to right for his first home run of spring. Choi, who's one of the more disciplined hitters in all baseball, you're not going to catch the guy chasing much, especially with pitches he can clearly see in the zone, but is someone who not only has exit velocity, but has the ability to lift the baseball, something that someone, a Daniel Vogelbach, for example, struggled so heavily with throughout his entire career, including his tenure with the Mets. That is what kind of separates Choi from a Vogelbach, because his ability to not only get on base, play above average defense at first base, and someone that, when all is well, is one of the better exit velo hitters in baseball, can easily give you, if he's playing consistently, you can give you north of 15 bombs. But again, that is something where it's not overwhelmingly exciting, and in the DH position, you want more power than that, and I 100% understand the argument. So Choi, if he cracks the Mets roster this year on opening day, will make right around a salary of $3.5 million. If he is in the minor leagues, he'll make around $35K or so per month in AAA. A name to keep an eye on this spring, not only with the defense that we've seen, but the bat-to-ball ability. Choi had himself a nice outing today for the Amazons against these Miami Marlins. Now, let's talk about the guy who definitely took all of us, not necessarily by surprise, but by excitement, and that is Drew Gilbert. Drew Gilbert, Mets top outfield prospect, got the start yesterday in center field, went 0-for-3 in doing so. However, we see today he's back out there, and he's productive, big time. He's down in the count 0-2 against a lefty, if I'm not mistaken. Lefty-lefty action going on. He gets an off-speed pitch, breaking pitch. He's looking, I actually think it was the slider, because the exit velo on it was around 77 miles per hour, so by Gilbert, he pokes it beautifully down there opposite, third baseline in that area to drive in 2 runs, as the Mets would have a 4-run inning there, as we would find out. Let me just make sure what inning exactly it was. That 4-run inning came in the 7th. All right, just double checking. Drew Gilbert, of course, providing the offense there. His first hit, not in the major leagues, but here in spring training. Very exciting stuff for the top outfield prospect, who is absolutely going to crack the bigs this year. He's going to be probably a month or 2 away from being in the bigs, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, Drew Gilbert, again, this is his job to lose, in the sense that he's going to start the year in AAA. We all know that. He is deemed by many as the next big thing outfield-wise for this team already. That big piece along with Ryan Clifford, who's a huge power bat, the biggest power bat in the Mets minor leagues, you could rightfully argue. And that Justin Verlander trade, last trade deadline. The bat-to-ball skills is all there. The defense is there. The arm strength. He's got all the tools you're looking for. His comp, which is actually kind of funny, but also a good thing, is Lenny Dykstra with power. So exclude Lenny Dykstra and all the nonsensical things he has done both on and off the field through his career and post-career. Think of him truly just as the player, how gritty, hard-nosed of a player he is, and imagine a bat that can consistently give you 20 to 30 plus home runs a season along with it. That is what you're getting to Drew Gilbert. That is beyond exciting, and it was nice to see him get that. Not that it was a monkey off his back. Again, we just started spring, but it was awesome to see him get his first base knock. You could see his happy reaction. I mean, Antoine Richardson was pumped up for him at first base too. Mets first base coach and outfield coach. He was going, they were all all pumped up about it. So happy to see Drew Gilbert get that production in. And I know a lot of you Mets fans out there are excited at the prospect, no pun intended, of this top prospect cracking the bigs at some point in the season. Let's see here. If they aren't going to play McNeil at second base, then I prefer him to play in right field or left field. McNeil's going to play majority at second base this season, especially after dealing with the elbow injury he had the past year or two. You're not going to see him in the corner outfields nearly as much, along with the outfield depth the Mets have is on a much higher magnitude and level than what it was in years prior. Tyrone Taylor as your fourth outfielder is a good problem to have for the Mets. I like that quite a bit. And speaking of Tyrone Taylor, did get on base today, was able to drive in a run too. Tyrone Taylor has been very productive so far this spring as he's batting .500 through his first 2 games that he's played or so. So lots of positivity and production there from Tyrone Taylor. And overall, it's been a nice start to spring for the Amazons. Again, I don't care about the game result. It doesn't matter if you win, lose, or draw. I just care about the guys that you know are either going to impact the club this year, that are in position battles like rotation, like bullpen, or top prospects that are going to impact the club at some point this calendar season. That's what I care about as the fan here. I'm sure a lot of you guys feel the same. So to anyone that has overreactions, good, bad, or indifferent, just try to stay even keeled. It's spring training again, and we're going to realize soon and fast how much of a drag this spring is going to be, because once we get into like 2 weeks of spring training, not even, a lot of fans are already fed up and just want the regular season to begin. And I don't blame a lot of you guys for having that viewpoint whatsoever. I see Ricky, my man. How you doing? Peter, how you doing? Everyone first chiming in. D-Ron, how's it going? Mets are also scoring on outs. Coley hit sack fly in previous games. Yes, you're absolutely right. That's true. And as we look at the offensive production for the Mets today too, it didn't stop there with Drew Gilbert in the 7th, because after Drew Gilbert was able to drive in those couple runs, Austin Allen, again, a Mets prospect on the outside looking in with an RBI single, the Mets would continue to tack on there. In the 8th, then we would see too, nothing would come of it, but we did see Luis Angel Acuna have a solid at bat after going 2 for 3 yesterday. Comes in as a pinch hitter, late game replacement, and gets on base there. In that 7th inning. That is what led Drew Gilbert to driving in then those 2 runs. So my mistake. That was in the 7th. In the 8th, Acuna had an error, but I'm going to tell you right now, don't be fazed by it. He played it exactly how he got his body in front. It just ricocheted off of him wrong uncomfortably. Got the throw to first in time too, but JT Shorts was just not able to handle it. Pretty sure he was at first base at that point there by the Mets. Yes, he was, because he actually came in for Mark Vientos later on in the game. And speaking of JT Shorts, also had a hit today. Another Mets prospect on the outside looking in who has actually been looking good in spring training the past couple of years. When I was in attendance in spring training last year for the Mets, Schwartz was ripping nukes on the backfields. Like he was a standout among the team, whether it was team A, B, or C he was practicing with. He looked very sharp there, and he, again, had himself a hit today too. Juan in the chat says, do you think the Mets are willing to trade Vientos since we have Beatty and Mauricio, or do you think his value is down and that's why they're not trying to move him? I think it's more the latter there, Juan. I think the Mets have a confidence level in Vientos and really want to see what he can provide and more consistent at-bats. And if he thrives, awesome. And if he doesn't, then they can figure out from there what they want to do with his future, right? And that's why the trade deadline is going to be a very interesting and fascinating discussion that we're going to have plenty leading up to that exact date there, right around, end of July, beginning of August. And Guardian Chaos, thank you for being an awesome moderator in here. Appreciate you, brother. Wardy, you think McNeil is expendable with all the new talent and Mauricio coming back next season? I think there are multiple players on this roster that are expendable. So to answer that question, yes, depending on what degree, how he looks, the future projection. I've said this before, and this doesn't just go for McNeil. This goes for multiple players. I do not foresee him to finish his contract in the Mets organization. I think the Mets are going to ship him out well before his contract has expired. I, of course, could be wrong, and that's fine. That means hopefully that he's playing great. But with the Mets having this logjam at second base, basically, with guys like Jet Williams and Luis Angel Acuna, you do have to wonder just how much of a future does McNeil have in the organization. And again, that's a conversation that we're going to find ourselves having throughout the year, absolutely. And, I welcome them. Not that I want to see Jeff go. Great guy. It's been awesome building a relationship with him. And I wish him the best. But I also know that this is a business at the end of the day, especially when you have top prospects in a position where the guy that's commanding said position lacks something that's very important in today's game, which is power. But I think the proper counter you can make is, okay, Jet Williams and Luis Angel Acuna profile eerily similar to Jeff McNeil in that right. A high contact hitter that struggles with the power front. That also is true. Difference though, these guys, 20 years of age. Jeff's a decade older. There's a difference. So I like the idea of both Acuna and Jet honing into more power as their careers go on. I just want to see the Mets have more gap-to-gap hitters, too. That's a big thing. I'm over the slap hitting, guys. It has not led the Mets to have nearly as much success as maybe we initially thought. Their 2022 first-half run was awesome, but it showed why that's a recipe for not continued success, but short-term success. In order for the Mets to get where they're going to want to be this year and in years going forward, they're going to want a true balance of those high contact, but also the ability to go gap to gap. Daniel Murphy on the broadcast today, who I will say did a very nice job. Murphy, I had the privilege of meeting him. I had my interview with him a year or so ago on the channel with Anthony Recker and Joe Sorrell in our previous podcast, as it was around Old Timers Day. And Murph's hitting philosophy is so fascinating to hear. And today, too, he made it known that the reason why he stopped his little comeback when he was signed by the LA Angels and was reported to Salt Lake there in AAA was because he was just a slap hitter. He couldn't hit in the gap. He did not have the power to drive beyond singles or have a home run here or there if you really hung one. Because of that reason, that's what ultimately led him to knowing that, yeah, it's my time to hang it up. I just cannot catch up to these guys anymore. I cannot hit beyond those singles, and that is a problem in today's game. It's not going to get you anywhere. So that it's going to be an interesting one to follow at second base because, again, the Mets, what is their depth there at second base? Outside of Ronnie Mauricio, because Ronnie does have power. He can be that X factor, but is Ronnie profile best at second base? Does he profile best as third base? Could he be toyed with in the corner of the outfield? Again, lots of question marks. Hopefully we'll have answers to when the time is right. Now is currently not the time. You don't understand why they would trade McNeil? Oh, for the simple fact that he's a slap hitter that doesn't provide enough continued offensive production and power. That's the difference. Jeff, as a player, while I love him, is not in a game currently where this is a commonality. There's a reason why, even after winning back-to-back batting champs in both the AL and then NL, that the Miami Marlins are shopping Luis Ariz. Again, fantastic player, but there is a limit as to how much they can give you with the type of profile that they have as a high-contact, lack of power hitter in a powers game today. Maybe a hot take, but if the Mets end up sellers at the deadline, I see Marte and Jeff being traded. I definitely see both of them being considered if they're sellers, 100%. Marte, though, you're going to have to eat a good chunk of that contract, and the Mets know that if they find themselves. But hopefully we don't find ourselves in that position come the MLB trade deadline, right? Fingers crossed. Also, guys and gals, if you haven't already, please make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. If you could help us get to 100+ likes by the end of the live show, that'd be greatly appreciated. People on replay, help us get 150 to 200+. That also means a lot. And again, your comments for people on replay down below does help a lot with the algorithm too. So feel free to continue voicing your thoughts. Really does mean a lot. And again, thank you guys in advance. Wardy trying to give my cat and dog a heart attack. James, what in God's name are you talking about? What did I miss, James, that caused such a comment? I'm so lost here. So lost. But again, let me know your guys' thoughts on the game as a whole, as we're going to be wrapping things up in the next couple minutes. Again, key takeaways today. Nice defense there from Jose Iglesias in that infield. Still, though, a guy that's more than likely going to be at AAA to begin the season for the Mets. Drew Gilbert catches his first base knock, which happens to be opposite field 2-run single to really get going the Mets' little rally they had. Now, I won't even want to say rally because it wasn't like they were down big or anything like that in the 7th, but still, it was nice to see the offensive production they had. Adrian Hauser, again, not overwhelming with any of his pitches, so it's just about making sure he induces that soft contact, ground ball outs. Hopefully we see more of that. And Jorge Lopez, his next outing, we'll see if those numbers continue to stay the same, or if as he ramps up, the velo naturally comes with too. I'd imagine that's going to be the case, but for the over-concerners, the ones that think that, what we're having right now is beyond face value, hopefully it will reaffirm that you shouldn't have too much to worry about on that front. Let's see this. We got to talk about it. Ben, what do we got to talk about, Ben? If Vientos doesn't produce this spring training, should it be wise for the Mets to try to get JD Martinez? JD Martinez will sign with the team before spring concludes. And JD Martinez is seeking north of $20 million on a short-term deal. He said no to the Giants already. I know he has a very limited market, but given the 110% taxed and given the way that the Mets have been kind of propelling Mark Vientos so far, it feels hard to believe that they're going to go out and land a bat at this point. Ed, appreciate you, my man. Thank you so much for chiming in, brother. Always does mean a lot. Love the discussion, too, because like I said, I've always been a fan of Jeff McNeil. He's been one of my favorite players on the team for many years. I just know that the game is not what it used to be, and this is not 2019 anymore. There's a difference, for sure, and not only defensive alignment, the baseballs, and overall what carries a team most in the game today, and power carries you. Absolutely. Just got my new bowling jerseys of Mets. Look sick. That's awesome, Steven. Love that you're bowling. I'm big bowling fans. That's really cool to hear. Tyrone Taylor and Nate Lavender are the standouts so far. They've looked great, both in their own respective situations. Tyrone again today, and Nate, of course, Nate Lavender has now put 6 batters up and 6 batters down this spring in fantastic fashion, 4 of which via strikeout. Lots to like there from Nate Lavender, and lots to like thus far that we've seen in spring. Having said that all, folks, that is going to wrap up the show. I want to thank you all so much that watched live and on replay. The Mets take Game 4 of spring training. They're 3-1 to kick off their first couple games here as they win by a final score of 7-1 against those Miami Marlins. They went fishing in Port St. Lucie, to say the least. We'll be back at it again real soon with more post-game coverage, individual video coverage, and live stream coverage on just the biggest storylines, takeaways from spring training, and the rumblings going on lately that we're going to talk about with Patrick Hennessy this Thursday on the Bridging the Gap podcast. It's going to be controversial. It's going to be hectic. It's going to be fun. And I'll see you then. Have a great one, folks.